Okay? So I want to talk about creation. When you guys started thinking about how, you were and the things that, the things that you want in a relationship. So when we start thinking about creation, it is not specifically like necessarily the guy has to, it can be whatever it is, but really what creation is, when we start creating, it is knowing how we want to feel in relationships. Like, what is it that we want? So let me give you an example. So when we're thinking about like creating it and creation and men and what's going on and what we want, we start thinking about, okay, what is it in the actual relationship when I'm with the man? What are the things that I notice that I was not having in the past that are actually very, very important to me? So I'm going to give you some of the basic ones, right? So when we think about creation, we start thinking about how we want a man to be with us. Because we all want something different with our men. Okay? We all want something different with a relationship and how we want our men. And when I think about creation and I think about, like, what is it, Charlene? What was it for Charlene that I was not having before? And one thing that I told you guys that I didn't have before was I actually didn't have respect in my relationship. I'm like, how am I like, we were just kind of going along, and one of the things was I didn't even think about that. Even though I always wanted to feel respected, I didn't even think that I actually was in a relationship, right, that there was not respect. I was in a relationship that I just said whatever I wanted to him. He would say whatever he wanted to me. And I was like, oh, this is not fun. Like, what is going on with this? This is not fun. I didn't even know that in a relationship that I wanted with a man, I didn't know. I actually wanted a man to be very gentle with me. I needed that tenderness from a man. Because I like I told you guys, I'm kind of hyper and I'm kind of, hyper. And I didn't know that I needed things to, like, I needed a man. I know Laura's like, I know, me too. But I didn't know that. I needed a man to slow down with me. These are actually things that I didn't even understand that was so important to me for a relationship. For a relationship that we were going to have. Now, when you think about creation, and when you think about, well, Charlene, how in the hell am I supposed to like get all these things? I'm writing down and I'm creating and I want this and I want that. Remember we talked about last week, like, is this realistic? Like, is this real? Yes. It actually is. And the reason why it is because I actually had to, again, I'm going to say it again, I actually had to get clear on what I'm going to put up with and what I'm not going to put up with. And guess what? I had to get clear what I'm willing to do. If I'm willing to be if I wanted this guy to be a certain way with me, what is Charlene willing to do also? Because remember I talked about that, you guys? So someone asked me one time, they're like, how did you know with Mark? Okay? Like, how did you know? Like, how did you know? Because, in the beginning, remember I talked about we don't really, it's like an energy. You gotta, like, you attract a certain energy and you get this certain thing. But the reality is how do you know that this person is like all that stuff that we talked about? Like, oh, how do I know this person is gonna really do this and do that and do that and do this and do this and do this? And so what was it for Mark and you? I'm gonna tell you. When I did clarity, you guys, I knew something. I was so clear on how people were going to show up, okay? Meaning, I almost kind of like I like to say that I'm like a BS detector. And I want you guys to be a BS detector too, okay? And so when I started, this route with the dating, and like obviously Mark, he's like, this is amazing and all this stuff. But a lot of the guys when I start dating guys anyway, they all look good in the beginning, that. So for specifically, why was it different for me this time with Mark, and why did I know differently? Let me tell you what he did. One of the main things for me, you guys, was I actually needed to talk to a guy that I felt real. Okay? Like, I don't know if you know what I'm saying. When you talk to people and you're just like, they kind of like talk a little higher. It's like, and you're like, and it's like very happy. And, you're like, oh, this is kind of weird. In the beginning, it's just like that small talk and anything like that. Let me tell you something that was really important to me. I didn't want small talk. I wanted a guy that was going to go raw and real, like immediately. Okay? So that I knew for sure. I was like, I'm not in the bullshit. I don't want the small talk. I want to know what I'm dealing with quickly. I want to know, okay, this guy, like, is he just looking at me because I look good? You know what I mean? Or is he like, because, we look good? Or is this guy have like an attraction to me and he wants to get to know me?